A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. This is a short story about a family who is planning a road trip from Georgia to Florida. The grandmother is an old talkative woman who really wants to go to Tennessee, but her son Bailey insists on Florida. Despite the grandma's warnings of an escaped prisoner known as the Misfit, Bailey, the grandmother, Bailey's wife, and two kids, John Wesley and June Starr, pack up and head out to Florida. This story is set in a rural countryside in the early 1950s. The setting plays an important role in this short story because the grandma's selfish wants and views on society are a reflection of that time period. She believes that things were much better in her early years. As the story unfolds, the setting gives insight to where the family will eventually meet their doom. On the ride, the characters make conversation about their life in their hometown. This is where we get to know the characters as best as possible. As they are traveling, the grandmother mentions a nearby old house with treasure in it. This makes the family want to go check it out. However, when the grandmother realizes that the house she is thinking of is in Tennessee and not in Georgia, she gets startled. Her cat causes Bailey to lose control of the car, and the car tumbles into a ditch. No one's hurt yet. And then this is where the misfit shows up. The grandmother endangers the family by saying that she recognizes him. One by one, the family members are killed in the woods until only the grandmother is left. At this point, the grandmother is bargaining for her life. She tells the misfit, "Why, you're one of my babies. You're one of my own children." In this sentence, we found that the bargaining was not enough and the misfit ends up killing her. The misfit says it's no real pleasure in life. And I think the misfit seems to go back on his morals. The grandma is a manipulator. The first thing we learn about her is that she doesn't want to go to Florida because she's got relatives to see in Tennessee. She is seizing every moment to try to change Bailey's mind. Whenever something runs up against her will, she tries to have it her way. Notice that she never does say that she directly wants to go to Tennessee, but instead she tries to scare Bailey with reports of a criminal being on the loose, and guilt-trip him about taking his children there. She also manipulates the misfit when she says that he's a good man and that he can change. The grandma has a twisted set of values for good and bad. She flippantly uses the word good to describe someone's gullibility or generosity. She perceives herself as a good woman and superior to others. She tells the children a story of her childhood when she met a good man. She says that a good man is hard to find, implying that she, of course, is a good person herself. She perceives herself as an intelligent, upright, noble Southern woman, but yet she's a bigot. She tells her children that little black children are not like Southern country folks. Bailey is the man of the house. When the grandmother's cat jumps onto his shoulder, he wrecks the car. But he's a good man and he doesn't argue. Instead, he tries to quiet the grandmother and stop her from provoking the three criminals. But it's useless. Him and John Wesley are the first to be killed by the misfit. John Wesley and June Starr are bratty children. They provoke the misfit's sidekick. The mother is described as a young woman in slacks whose face was as broad and innocent as a cabbage. The author uses simile to describe the mother. The misfit. He's a wanted criminal who comes across the family when they crash their car. His troubled past allows him to live life on a moral code of meanness, as a way of living his life with meaning. This mentality removes the morality of being a human, and the misfit shoots the grandmother and the family in cold blood. He has mental health problems and he cannot remember if he murdered his own father. His mind creates a wall in which he's blocking out reality and fabricating a lie. The author uses a descriptive and grotesque tone. An example would be when the grandmother raised her head like a parched old turkey hen crying for water. Everybody makes mistakes. This theme is consistent with the grandmother being needy and selfish and always judging people. She doesn't see their mistakes and is quick to say if they're good, bad, or lady. However, when she her life is on the line, then she decides that yes, the misfit has made mistakes in the past, but he can still be a good man. Religious themes. The grandmother shifts between faith in the last few moments of her life. She never really practiced her faith, however, she's quick to judge another person for not being devout. The grandmother mumbled, maybe he didn't raise the dead. So her faith is being challenged when she's near death. However, the misfit kills her anyway and tells her sidekick that if he had been around to shoot her for every minute of her life, maybe she would have had some rationality or had been able to have some sense. Literary devices. The author uses situational irony, simile, personification, allusion, and imagery. Foreshadowing and situational irony. Foreshadowing predicts future events. In the first example, we can see that the quote shows the grandma foreshadowing their encounter with the misfit. The second quote is foreshadowing the death of the entire family. Situational irony occurs when a development in a story is the opposite of what the reader expects. The first quote demonstrates situational irony because the grandma misread the misfit's emotions. The second quote shows irony in that the misfit causes Bailey's mother to see herself for who she is, which is a sinner. Conclusion. The author says that the Antichrist or misfit fired 3 bullets into her chest. And I think this is an allusion to the God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I'm not a Christian, but my interpretation of the death of the family is that fate finally caught up to the grandmother for having a weak faith. This might sound a bit bleak, and that the whole family had to be murdered because of her, but I think that the author has a deeper message about the Catholic religion. The Antichrist or misfit seems to be a reminder for the Catholics to pray and that sins are going to be accounted for. It is only when the grandmother comes face to face with death that she begins to change her values. O'Connor's larger point here seems to be that most people treat their inevitable deaths as an abstraction and that they're never going to face an afterlife, so they don't really consider it.